has a song called Willow that came out after Willow was named, and then she has a Department of Poetry something.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I know it's all.
I blocked her off of all of my. I was like, I've had enough.
I know the newest album does have like it's like the
I love Taylor.
poets,
So
the sad poets department or something.
yeah, something
like
about that. That's not her finest hour. Oh, Willow, do you want to come up here?
That's surprising.
You can join us.
Yeah.
Yeah. A snaggle. A snaggle tooth.
Yeah, she's got a snaggle tooth.
Oh. My Charles has a snaggle tooth.
She's just so special. Snaggle tooth.
Sorry.
That's a nice name for it. I like it. I'm gonna keep that.
Yeah.
Snaggle tooth.
I call Charles Snaggly.
Snaggly.
Does Charles live with you?
No, Charles lives with my parents.
Oh, this is where I go.
Oh, I know. This is where I start to cry.
Oh, snaggle tooth lives
Yeah.
with parents.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Charles is a wonderful animal.
Yeah.
Oh.
I've never met him,
No.
but I'm sure.
He's a little standoffish.
Yeah.
Incredible.
You could not bring Charles to readings like you bring Willow.
No,
That would go very
he's a
poorly.
wild animal. You just let him run in the field, and he just goes.
Willow is just so. But she was trained since a puppy to go to poetry readings and to be the poetry somewhat poodle.
Is the poetry?
I was at a reading last night where there was just a cat hanging out constantly. Sat on my friend's lap like the whole reading. That's so nice. It was very
Where?
nice. Pages in Kensington. They have a store
Oh.
cat.
Kilgore.
Oh, I
Kilgore
didn't know
Trout. Yeah, he's a very good kitty.
Who was reading?
I read alongside
Oh, right.
Rod.
Filling
someone.
station.
Yeah, the
Oh,
flywheel.
yes. I would have come to that had I not done
You
interviews
got,
all
your,
day.
you got your own stuff going on. I mean,
Right now, yeah. Like it's
you're busy.
a crazy. It's not always like this, as you know, but right now it is.
Yeah.
And it's about to pass, and I'm about to spend a week hunkering down because Micheline's given me an extra week.
Yay.
All right.
Thank you,
Begins.
Micheline.
How much am I allowed to swear?
A lot.
Nice.
And in fact, I encourage it. Swearing is, after meeting Ursula K. Guin.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ursula K. Guin, and Ursula K. Guin swore emphatically almost over breakfast. Like I got to have breakfast with Ursula K. Guin, and I would say swears like a trucker, but she swears like a poet.
She swears like a poet.
And
Nice.
and she was fucking fabulous. And so I encourage swearing, and I encourage truth, honesty, and authenticity. So
That's
it's
all I
all
can
very
give.
easy for both of you to just.
My honesty is that my brain has been fried all day. You can ask Skylar. So if I have nothing smart to say, I'm really sorry.
Well, I encourage not being smart as well.
Okay.
So this is
Cool.
going to be super easy peasy for you because it's something that is assumed. Like when you're writing a poem and you're doing research, if it's about it, it's all about assuming what you know and trusting it and going forth.
True.
That was one of the questions someone asked in the process yesterday. Was like, oh, in the editing process, how do you know when to say yes and no to your editor? And sometimes it really is just trust in yourself.
Well, why don't
Do what you
you
gotta do.
answer that question for me, Skylar?
How to take advice and edits in a poetry setting? I usually prefer to go with the old homage. A camel is a horse by committee. Even though I love camels, I understand that not every poem should be a camel. So it just comes down to trusting your own instincts sometimes, or if it's a certain form. My first book was Haiku, and of course I'll give it up to Micheline, incredible writer, poet, but there were times where I was like, I might have an edge here in the form department. I'm gonna roll with what I got, taking advice from Terry Ann Carter as well was a big influence for me writing that book. So it's nice to have people you can trust, and it's nice to be able to trust yourself as well. I think that comes with finding your own voice and all that good stuff.
Well, that's true. And you know, one of the things is to get notes, get those people around you that you love and trust, and get their notes on the poem, write them all down. Don't argue with anything. Just say, yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then take those away and use the ones you want to use and throw out the ones you don't. It's your poem. It's
100%.
your writing. And that said, sometimes you write down things and you go, no, that's not going to apply to this poem, and they can just forget about it.
Yeah,
I'm not
no shot.
applying that to my poem. And then you get it home and you start working on it and you go, oh, that does apply to my poem.
Yeah, you can like try writing it out both ways and see which one works best, and sometimes you're like, oh, well,
That's very true.
more fool I.
And so it is this day. I'm going to ask you to hold up your book.
yes.
There it is. It's beautiful.
Really pretty book.
Bret's book has a beautiful cover, and I think it's Rick Kokotovich
It
that
is.
did that cover.
Yes.
And someone that I've known for a lot of years, and Micheline mentioned, oh, Bret's book, the cover, and isn't that beautiful? And do you have yours there?
I do, yeah.
And this is Skylar. And Skylar has this beautiful book transcribing moonlight, and it's a beautiful book. It's a very simple book, and
I couldn't write anything else.
it's simple. That doesn't mean it's simplistic. It's simple in its clarity, and the book is very, very clear and very concise, like a really good haiku. And I would love for you to open this gathering that we have today at Not For Everyone with a little reflection. Skylar,
A reflection.
a reflection of your life.
Oh.
Oh.
That's a big one. I thought you were gonna be like, read something from it. Nay. Okay, a reflection on my life. My life as a writer, I will interpret the question as. It started, I found a copy of Bashō's travelogues, Narrow Road to the Interior, Narrow Road to the North, depending on the translation. I found for $1 at a book sale at Mount Royal, and I read through it. And I had taken a couple poetry classes, and I was like, I enjoy it, but I never really like sat down and learned the craft. And after reading that collection, I was like, fuck yeah, this is what I'm getting into. And I just devoted my life to learning haiku and haiku related forms for probably the next like 3 or 4 years. I remember some summers I would wake up and I'd smoke weed every 2 hours from 10 a.m. till 10 p.m. just doing research online, whatever I could find on haiku, just consuming it. And it really changed my perspective on life. And I feel I owe a lot to it. And I'm happy that I could hopefully do the form and my poetic ventures justice with this book.
Yeah. And how old were you then?
Ooh. Okay, so I would have been 23? 23.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And can you speak to the way to approach haiku through the seasons?
Sure, yeah. A lot of people think haiku is simply just 17 syllables. We can get into syllable count another time. But it often hinges on something called a Kigo, or a seasonal word. And typically you want to avoid just straight up saying winter, for example, but if you said snow or like chilly moon, it really sets the scene in an evocative way that has a rich history within it. For the longest time, haiku and haiku forms, they had a limited word bank that you could draw from to make a haiku. That was later dissolved, of course, but through that history, each of these symbols develops such rich imagery and history and context behind it that just saying something as evocative as like cold moonlight, it says so much more than just winter, and it's a really good way to just open up a poem. It's quite beautiful.
With that said, I'd love you to read.
Okay, that I can do.
I'm being really bossy today.
Yeah.
This is Poems by Heart.
Um.
I'm your AI boss.
Okay.
Oh, dang.
I get down with that.
Skylar Kay, let's hear it.
Siri, read me a poem. I'm gonna start with one. Just because I had mentioned Bashō earlier. He's kind of like the granddaddy of haiku. If you don't know, you know now. It starts with a quote from him. Go to the pine if you want to learn about the pine. I walk to the tree where my family scattered dad's ashes. Try to read between the lines of bark. I cannot. The wooden word search stares back with the same silence his wrinkles did in that cramped hospice room 2 days after he stopped talking, 8 years before I wished I had listened. Still, I think of questions for this tree, but how could it even respond? Would the bark shape an answer from itself over the years, or must I chop heartwood and swallow sap, a clairvoyant cannibal scrying dead names from fallen needles? Bashō did not give very clear directions about how to learn, or I lost something in translation. Moonlit breath, I cannot find the words.
Beautiful. And, you know, like every great haiku, there is this aftermath.
Mm.
And what I loved when I was reading about haiku myself for many years, because Ginsberg required us to write one a day. And, a haiku a day will keep Ginsberg away. The aftermath.
Mm.
So the haiku is this beautiful way of the poem living in the space long after it has been said.
There was another, if you will permit me to read one more, that I feel really works in that tradition. It is simply a 2-line haiku that just says, snowblind, I listen for haiku. And then the third line is open.
Yeah, it's the space where you get to, it's holding that time, and it changes time itself. The time that we're living in no longer exists. It's outside of time. And your book does that in several places, where there's that, of Skylar hanging on. I was like, oh, that's so great. It's so great because it does change time. And I'm interested also, you speak of your father, I'm interested in how the traditional haiku might speak of speaking with spirit. Do you know anything about that? It's a quirky question. I just thought it though.
I think it's interesting of how it evokes spirit. Quite often haiku is self-referential because again it has such a long history. It will call to attention poets or events from the past in a new and creative way. There was one haiku I wrote recently, for example. There was the original haiku where it's flood of moonlight, the drip, drip, drip of her lingerie. And I woke up one morning and I wrote...
That's very hot.
Right? And I wrote, it was heavy snow, the tick, tick, tick of our radiator. So it references itself in this kind of way. So I think it can evoke the spirit of the past by bringing up haikus that had previously been written and then kind of playing on them in a new contemporary way to kind of evoke something that had been in the past and bringing it into the future.
That's so well said. It's well said. Thank you. And so this is your first book.
It is my first book. Woo!
And it's published by
Frontenac House. Yeah.
Yes.
And the incredible honor of working with Micheline Maylor as an editor, and it was just a fabulous experience.
Same.
oh my gosh.
We got it all here.
That's something we all have in common.
Wow.
And so your story.
My story, starting from the beginning, I'm also going to take it in the writerly sense.
Yes.
My story is far less interesting, I think. I used to sit in my parents' basement and watch, I don't know if you know the Puppy Bowl. Oh, it's like this thing. No. Hear me out. It's this thing that they have on the Animal Planet network, and they would like put puppies in a ring during the Super Bowl. And I would go to my computer and I would write out backstories for each one of the puppies. And that is how I started writing. And then it kind of transitioned into just like writing different stories. And I admittedly did not venture into the world of poetry until university. I think I was in my third year or so, and I was taking some fiction classes with Micheline, and she recommended that I submit a portfolio to kind of jut myself into a poetry class that was far above my expertise at that point. And I at first said no and then did it, and it changed my life from there on out.
There may be no degree of expertise in poetry beyond knowing or not knowing. And not knowing is a really good thing. And listening to the heart and the spirit is also, and the voice that we can't, or that a lot of people can't hear. So it's a degree of listening, and the expression of that does have craft. But anyone can learn the craft. It's like anyone can learn to draw. Anyone can learn to draw, but not everyone can be an artist and create art. So it's this interesting thing with poetry, because anyone can be a good craftsperson. All you have to do is look into it a bit. But the heart of a poet, the listening of a poet, is another thing. So that's something that is a gift.
Thank you.
And it's, anybody who's going to write this backstories of pugs, you just go, well, or any dogs, you just go, well, that in itself has that twisted perspective of intuitively. It's intuitively there, right? And there you are, you're writing those backstories, and you are, in a sense, being brilliant.
Thank you. I thought so.
I think it's brilliant. If I was your mother, I would be crying. I'd come downstairs. Do you want cheesies or anything? Can I serve you any crackers or chips?
You have a patron for the
Yes, let's go.
May I ask how old you were when you embarked upon these adventures?
I was quite young. I wasn't old.
I was really hoping you were going to be like 17.
17, writing out the backstories. No, I started quite young, and then I just would save them to the desktop of the computer. And wherever those are, I hope that they're doing well. In the
You'll
ether.
find them one day.
Yeah.
And then you'll probably write a whole book about it. Like some of the stuff that we first do, strangely enough, comes back, and to haunt us in a good way.
Yeah.
And they haunt us, and then we go, oh, actually, there was something in that. Then you'll go further and jump into that rabbit hole and see what's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found that with this collection. I started it by accident with my university portfolio. It all just kind of really came together, and I was able to take a look back during that time and be like, okay, I think there might be something here. There might be something to dive deeper into.
And why don't you read one of those poems?
Oh.
Because I couldn't make it to your book launch because I was out of town, or something was giving. I remember I felt really, I was, oh yeah, I remember. Was that when I had my back out?
Oh.
It might have been.
Yeah, well, it's been a health fuckery.
Oh.
And so now I'm good. I'm on the other side of hell. And I'm wearing, 100-year-old hats.
On the other side of hell.
So the hat, you always have to wear a hat that's much older than you are.
That's good advice.
That's how to make it out of hell.
Another one.
I'm clutching at pearls.
What?
Trying to find a short one to read to you.
It doesn't even have to be short. We're here for like an hour.
Okay.
We can totally lounge in.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, get comfy.
Yeah, and people can be listening. So, this will be seen and heard. So
Right.
it can be enjoyable in that way.
Okay. Thank you. I think I'm going to read a little piece called Shock Therapy. It reads a little bit more like fiction, but this was one of the first pieces I wrote in any fiction class, any poetry class, and one of the first times I talked to Micheline about actual work. Shock Therapy. My first love was a boy who steam cleaned rugs for fun, had a mental breakdown at 24, and pulled his teeth out one by one. I counted the steps as my feet carried me over white tile, illuminated by fluorescent lighting. Brown flecks littered white and begged me not to crush them with the soles of my shoes. I did because I had to. Upon entering, I found him pumped full of pain medication and Xanax, and my reward was a gummy smile. Hospital gown flushed pale against his skin in such gradient that I didn't know where material started and flesh began. The only tell was the fresh stripe of spilled orange juice staining the front, acting as a treasure trail to the pool sitting in his lap. Drool hung in a strand from the corner of his mouth. I couldn't decide if pliers or just hitting would work better. He went with the pliers. That was what he told the nurse on his arrival. The message was passed on to me with a smile just as toothless as his was. After his well-deserved stay in the psych ward, we moved in together. This guy who bunked with me would only eat applesauce, he said. 1 in the morning, 1 at noon, 1 at 9:56 in the evening. Don't ask why, I can't tell you. That's the stuff you see in the nut ward. Words dribbled from his tongue, my mind straining to understand what he said. The dentures hadn't come in quite yet. Once he asked me how much I thought the electricity bill would be if someone was electrocuted. I wanted to tell him that I didn't know. Instead, I said, guess it depends if it's on purpose or not. He didn't live to greet Halloween. Fuzzy black spiders, courtesy of my mom, hung from the rafters of our flat. Bats sat on the windowsills. Bouquets of rotting lilies, a tribute to the ambiance, littered the oak tabletop. White petals sunk to brown flecks. I wanted to crush the withering with the soles of my shoes. I didn't because I didn't have to. I often wondered what the answer to his question was. My father offered to pay for October's electricity bill because I needed a new toaster.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Thank you.
I look forward to reading the whole book.
Thank you.
You've hooked me.
Oh, good.
Good
Did my job.
Good job as a poet. The poem that hooks.
Yes.
Yes. There's several usually poems in each book that become your hook, strangely enough. And the poems that you read again and again, and then you become better and better at reading them, and so they stick.
Yeah.
They stick.
I recently recorded the audiobook version of this, and so going back and having to read through it all like in succession was a super crazy experience.
Oh.
Is this where we all start kissing too?
This is a kiss. Who is it? It's Biff Naked?
Can I have my tea, please?
Who's calling me now?
Oh,
It might have been Micheline. I'm
thank
not sure.
you.
Oh, Micheline.
It might have been.
Mich-
I don't wanna look on
Oh, Micheline keeps on coming up in this interview.
Maybe.
Give her a call.
Bring
She's
Sheri
even
back.
calling us.
That's Monster poetry can evoke spirit. I think we did it.
I think
Micheline Maylor sang.
Micheline Maylor. I think that it's interesting. Speaking from what I really loved about the piece was you were speaking in a true voice of yourself and what you had experienced, but you didn't express it in a painful way. You expressed it in a poetic way, which I always appreciate. That it's a poem, and this is what happened, and you let the reader or the listener, the viewer, have the emotions instead of you living the emotions and everyone else going, oh, I feel awkward. And so that's what I really loved about that. And so I have a question for both of you, and you can answer it in any way that you choose. Like you could choose to do it like
Say a line, you say a line.
We can just talk over each other.
Yeah, you could talk over each other, or you can do it whatever comes out.
Sure.
We'll see. Okay. The question is, who are your influences or mentors? 3, 2, 1, go!
Micheline Maylor.
Oh, I'm so surprised that happened.
The countdown was appreciated. Thank you.
That was good.
And more.
Terry Ann Carter was a big one for me. Is the ex-president of Haiku Canada, and took a lot of time out of her days to teach me the ins and outs of Haiku, which I really appreciated. Sheri-D Wilson, pretty rad. Gets me involved in the community when she can. I'll leave it at that, and I'll think on more.
All right, because you're one of my influences too.
I'm flattered.
Yes, you are.
Thank you.
Another one of mine was Peter Midgley. Is Peter Midgley? That was
The Midgley.
yeah. I have been working with him since 2021. I was part of the Writers Guild of Alberta mentorship program, and he took me under his wing at that point, and then he has seen some ugly drafts, and I'm very, very thankful for his patience. And I actually met him in person for the first time this week, so it was really rad to actually have that connection and say hello.
Wonderful. On that, and let's continue on that front, and then let's talk after that about the rewrites and the reimaginings when you're editing a poem.
Mm-hmm.
And so just put that in the back of your mind as you continue to think about who are those influences. Like I also have those influences of poets who are no longer with us on this level,
Sure.
on this realm. Like, there's like Diane de Prima. To this day, I read her work, and her work about HD and some of HD's work, and as it relates to Sappho, and I continue to read that work, and I have for 40 years.
Mm.
So they continue to influence me. It doesn't matter whether they're alive or on this plane or not.
I think that's one of the more interesting parts of going through the editing process was just how much of an influence reading actually had on the writing. Peter actually recommended South African author Brayton Breitenbach to me, who unfortunately passed away at the end of November of this year. And his surrealism, both in painting and writing, was super influential, and I think really shaped a lot of the final versions of the poems in this collection. And it's something that I carry with me as I read and write now. Yeah.
If I had to pick some influences, Issa. I always joke Issa is my cup of tea because his name means one cup of. regardless. And Mary Oliver, I quite like. I feel you talked about how haiku leaves that space after. There's kind of a wake, and I feel Mary Oliver can accomplish the same thing. So I like to steal from her whenever possible.
We're talking about stealing.
Oh.
The Bible I actually found to be quite helpful in this. It's like interesting to take pieces of work that have been so influential negatively or positively and reimagine them in a more contemporary setting, or to completely flip them on their heads and make them applicable and more impactful in a different way.
There's some great passages in the Bible. Like recently I felt, and I kept on quoting it, that I was living through the book of Job. I was like, okay, this is clearly a book of Job, and as I remember it, and I think that the Bible has some fantastic passages, great stories as well, and great observations, as does Shakespeare. The same resonance for me, where you read something and you think, that is a great observation of life. And both, the Bible and Shakespeare, and even Blavatsky was written by more than one person. One person's name is on it, or one title is on it, but there's many influences there. And so you have many perspectives, and that is so wonderful. And, I don't think there are any thieves in writing. I think that there is, that we have to learn. We're influenced by things. And we have to learn sometimes by imitation, even. When I first was writing, I really liked Howell. And Ginsberg was one of my all-time great influences at that time. And when Ginsberg said, "Who are your influences?" and I said Ginsberg, I think he was going to slap me. But because he didn't really want me to say that for unknown reasons. But I was heavily influenced by him to the point where I imitated him in my writing. And McClure for a while. And you try out these different artists, and your voice is taken to these other places. And so it's an important thing to know who your influences are and how you're working with them.
When I started writing poetry, not haiku, but poetry, like more full form, I copied William Blake, and it doesn't come through too much in my writing anymore, but it comes through in my ability to point out iambic to an unfortunate extent, because of course, I was like, oh, I like the way this sounds, so I wrote it out, and now I can't stop pointing it out, to the point where we have a jar at home and I need to put $1 in it anytime I point out something that was iambic.
So, it's like a swear jar.
But it's only at home, so when I did it earlier in the kitchen to you,
Doesn't count.
I'm free.
Yeah, well, there's iambic. There's the other thing that will chase you. And I'm going to tell you it now, because it's going to be one of those songs you can't get out of your earworm and a mode, and you'll just go, shoot!
Oh no.
Oh yeah, I'm going to give you one. It was taught to me by Quincy Troupe. Quincy Troupe being, I think, one of the ultimate jazz poets of the United States, and wrote the book about Miles Davis in the sense of the biography, and he's really when it comes to jazz. And read Quincy Troupe if you can, because in particular Avalanche, stunning. His latest Duende collection of collected works. You just get it. Don't not get it. And so he said, the perfect jazz line is 8 syllables long. And now, when you start hearing 8-syllable lines. So then, what had happened is we were walking along the street, and his wife and a friend of mine, Faust, were walking along the street in Vancouver, and Faust said something, and it was a perfect 8-syllable line, and Quincy, and he goes, "It's my line," and I was like, "No, it's my line." And he was like, "You don't even know why you want that line." And then that's when he told me, standing there in the middle of the street, that's why you must hang out with poets. You can't, you could go to poetry workshops and everything great, fabulous. However, the best way to learn from a poet is just hang with them. Because that's when they'll tell you stuff, the most important stuff, like the perfect line is an 8-syllable line. And then that's when I was like, oh. And then I started thinking, at that time I had written a poem called I Am a Closet New Yorker. And I was like, holy shoot, it's 8 syllables long.
That's my line now. Actually.
Yeah, actually, that's my line.
And then you start when you hear them, they sing. And you realize that is, and now, there's the things that I'm working with, the spiritual sounds and the metaphysical sounds and the sounds that change who you are and can reorganize your ions and your atoms and, like all those things that come into life and play when you get older. But 8 syllables. It's like it takes iambic. There's that. And you go, okay, that was nice. And then you go, 8-syllable line. And then you start looking at your own poetry and the lines that really work. And then when you start writing those 8-syllable lines, if you have a band behind you, I am a closet New Yorker. Behind closed doors, I must be down. And you go, oh my God, I just have one of the clues to the universe.
I always knew I could write jazz. Sorry.
All right. That was good.
That's my line.
Okay, do it out loud though, so everyone can hear.
I always knew I could write jazz.
Oh, yeah, but it wasn't quite 8 syllables.
That's mine.
I always knew I could write.
This isn't amateur hour, Sheri-D.
I want to be a part. I didn't say anything cool, but
I want this moment. Thank you. Okay, then.
This interview's gone off the rails.
It
Sorry,
has.
that's another 8.
I have a question, which is, what is illusion?
With an A or an I?
I.
My brain's broken. When I think of the word illusion, all I can think of is there was a show, Arrested Development, and there was one character in particular who always did magic tricks, and someone was like, we don't care about your magic trick, Jobs, and he'd be like, it's not a trick, it's an illusion. So that's what I think of. So I guess an illusion could be, in poetry, tricks with words.
That's good.
yeah, I think also tricks with meaning. I think being able to take one thing and mean it in one way, and I don't know what I'm saying.
Say it in one way and then turn it into another.
That's it.
I don't know that poetry ever has meaning.
Can prescribe it, but yeah.
You can, it can hold meaning for someone else, maybe, but it doesn't have meaning. And if it does have meaning, then it's, I don't know how to even, I wouldn't know how to view that. I don't understand what it truly means. But I don't. And I don't know that a poem, I always ask myself more than what is the meaning of this poem, or does this poem have meaning? I ask myself more, what is this about? So for poetry, for me, what is it about is, and then I can answer that. But with the meaning thing, I can never really, I don't know what that means.
Yeah, it's a folly effort.
It's an illusion.
Whoa.
That's right, because
Bars.
there's what an illusion is, because it's all an illusion, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm curious about that these days, and what doesn't exist in the poem. So what lives in the poem, but it doesn't exist there, or does it exist there in the, it's there, and Micheline and I were talking about this a bit yesterday, of this place in the poem that is the listening of the poem itself, in a sense. And that is so interesting. It becomes more and more interesting as I get older. And it's not just the silence, like you're talking about haiku, which has a lot of space in it. So it's what's being said, what's not being said, and then something else.
Yeah, they always say it takes 3 to haiku. The haiku writer, the scene being observed, and then the reader. So
And they're all there.
They're all there, and then the space between them gives room for
Say that again. It's the
haiku writer, the haiku phenomenon being observed, and the haiku reader. And then the space between them can allow for these illusions, as you might call them, to emerge.
Do you think
that's very good. We'll just pause on that one for a second, because that's really, is that true of all poetry?
I think so. The only place I would say that it differs for haiku is there's this phenomenon called batsuga ichinyo, where the person, the haiku writer, sees themselves reflected in that moment on it's a flash of enlightenment. Like the most famous haiku is like ancient pond, the frog jumps into the sound of water. And there we have the trick with words, because there's synesthesia. But the sound of the water is that haiku moment breaking the pond that is the stillness of Bashō's mind. So there's that moment of batsuga ichinyo as he sees himself in the moment that he's writing about. And I don't know if you always get that with other poems, but with basically all good haiku, you're going to see that moment of batsuga ichinyo.
Wow. That is. And do you think that the poem, where does it come from? Like, is it coming through you? You're transmit, like, so if you're there's the scene that and then there's the other.
It's a complete breakdown of the I. There's almost like a sense of like there's a spark within where the self is removed from the object subject discrepancy is completely obliterated in that moment, and it's hot. I quite like it.
I'm finding it quite hot.
It is
It's not just the fire behind you.
No, that is hot. But in that moment, I think the first time I ever was like, oh snap, that's when I was like, haiku, you and I are gonna be good friends.
And say the poem again.
Yeah, ancient pond. A frog jumps into the sound of water.
It's pretty darn good. And do you think poems live in the body?
You want to tackle this one
Like,
first?
I'll just use an example so you know what I'm talking about. Like, when you...
Sorry.
It's been doing that. Like, we have various things happen in the room. And in the last conversation, there was a moment where things actually went ka-tonk.
Little sound effects.
Yeah. Maybe there's a lovely ghost that lives here.
Hi, ghost.
Hello, Jim.
Oh,
Do you think his name is Jim?
I think Jim's a great name
I
for a
think
ghost.
so too.
Hello, Jim.
How are you?
Yes. So the poem, when you learn a poem, let's call it by heart, or by rote, some people say. I like saying by heart because it's kind of, aw. You learn a poem, and then it lives in your body. Because our bodies are, these frameworks that are carrying all of this flesh, but they're also carrying all that water, which has all that memory. And within that memory, if we memorize a poem that is not our own, what are we actually doing there?
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to look at it as being stored in the body and like living in the like marrow. I don't know. I find that when reading my work at times, and I don't know if this is weird, but the vibration of certain parts of poems will just trigger like some sort of emotion, and I'm like, I did not know that I felt that strongly about what I'm reading right now. It can be the smallest thing, and I haven't thought about it in that manner, but just the way that my body like shakes almost to it.
And it is weird and a beautiful kind of weird.
Oh yes, yeah.
Let's go with
I
it.
love weird.
Always weird. Always
Okay.
go with the weird. Weird with the what?
Yeah, lean into it.
Lean into it. And within that, that's so true, because then that shuddering thing. I know when I'm like having a moment where I'm like, and I have to go and write that down, and I'm having that shuddering, that crazy moment where you're just like good, crazy, happy, and also wired in that shaky kind of way. Then you go and write it down, and then you memorize it. And then what is happening there as it lives in the body? And we are, they say, born with a song that is living in our body at all times. That is our song. And we have lost the ability to hear it, they say. And which I think is interesting, and I do try to listen to that song. And when I was studying Pythagoras rhythms, Pythagoras was always talking about those rhythms that are living in our bodies. And each character would have a different rhythm. And he would study the characters in an opera and figure out what the rhythms were to write them, orate. And so if we have those poems memorized in our body, what is that telling us as poets? Like, you have that poem in your body.
See, for me, I find it trippy because a lot of those poems I've memorized are translated, which adds a whole different ball game. But I think it's interesting, this idea that we can, if a poem lives in us, it's in our body, it's in our blood. Memorizing someone else's, it gives a unique insight into who they were when they were writing it, but it's so frustrating because I know that, like, if I write, like, I can remember where I was when I wrote some haiku, when I had those moments. I know that I will never be able to have that moment for a poem that's not mine. I might be able to be like, oh, I remember where I was the first time I read it, but the first time I wrote it, I think that kind of ingrains it in you in a different way than memorization.
Oh, that's an interesting twist that I hadn't thought of. Dame Skylar.
Dang.
Very nice. That's so true. Although there are times when when I was reading Sartre, and I knew that Sartre wrote The Maids and was in jail, had found out about this thing that happened, wrote the piece, the first draft, in jail, and apparently liked to jerk off when writing. Yep. And so there's a certain rhythm when you read Sartre. The Jeannet. The Maids. Who wrote The Maids?
Just go.
No, it wasn't Sartre.
Just go like this.
Say watermelon.
And then edit over it after.
Watermelon.
The Maids.
Intermission, please.
Who wrote
Please
The Maids?
hold.
You know, he was in jail.
Oh, no shot.
And he's doing his...
You lost me at masturbation. That's all I can think
still
of.
there.
Yeah, Jean Genet.
Okay.
Jean Genet.
Jean Genet Ramsey.
Jean Genet! Jean Genet. And so sometimes when I would be reading that, The Maids, I would actually be able to embody the moment the Genet wrote it.
Can I ask a question? Have you ever had a hard time memorizing something? Or have you ever had a hard time kind of absorbing those stories into your body? In that way?
Why?
I don't want to... Well, just...
Curious?
I'm curious. I have gone through like some issues with the body and surgical issues and all of that kind of stuff, and I've found specifically in the last few years that I've been going through all of those like medical concerns, it is harder and harder for me to remember as well as like retain.
Oh.
And yeah.
That's interesting. I think that we go through. I think we go through different times in our beings, in our bodies, and how our bodies change, how we decide to change them, how we and with that we receive, and we may let go of at the same time. And it's the same with even if you go through menopause. Suddenly, you're receiving new things, new information, and you're letting go of information. And I think that process is something that we go through our entire lives. And with that said, we go through different abilities with those different properties, and different discoveries with those new properties. And memorization does live in the body, but sometimes the body wants to let go of it. And that's up to the body. Like, there's certain things that have stayed with me and certain things that have fallen away. And I used to memorize long tracks of pieces, long tracks, and long plays, and very long, big parts when I acted. And they didn't stick with me necessarily. The things that stuck with me were the things that wanted to stay and inform me.
So you can remember songs.
Yeah, I can remember songs. I wonder if that has to do with the vibration. I've really realized a lot lately that I think there's kind of a buildup or like a stagnation inside, and poetry has not been coming as naturally as it has in the past. And so I wasn't sure if that is something that's
It's an interesting question, and I think that it can be shifted as you want to. Then you can shift some of these. We could talk about that deeper on a level between us, and shifting different things in the body and being able to change things and adapt and let go of things. Because sometimes when there's a blockage how do we let go of those blockages? Acupuncture can do a world of good. And there's various other things that you can do to shift the things that need to leave out. And in fact, you want to do that because that's where disease lives. So you want to find out. As a poet, you find out a lot more than most people do about your body, because that's part of this is part of us. This is and we work with this. And we can adapt this, and we can make changes to this. We can experiment with this. We can explore this, and we can adapt and change it to any way that we want to. It's identifying it, and then going, all right, I can do some shifting there. And if you're feeling like poetry's not moving through, and that can happen. My teacher would always say, Diane de Prima always said to me, I would say, same thing. And she said, don't write. And I said, what? She goes, you're not allowed to write for 3 months.
That is yeah. Oh no.
I know. And she actually said, you're not allowed to write for 3 months. And that made me want to write with all my being. And I was so ticked off because she had given me the instruction, and I generally tried to follow somewhat what she would say. And then after about 2 months, I just wasn't going to take it any longer, and I had to write, and then it came blasting out. And she said, that's what you want. Because sometimes things can get repetitive, and then you're like, oh, it's not singing anymore. It's not singing to me. And I wanted to sing to me, so stop. Do nothing.
That's so hard. Doing nothing is so hard.
It is. She was Buddhist. Do nothing. It would be one of the things. And just read. And make notes. You have your journal. And your journal is one of the most important things to a younger writer. And it's one of the most important things to me. My journals, I couldn't live without them. They all live underneath these things. I have hundreds. I started writing a journal when I was 11. And I think journal writing is really important, and making notes on things, observations. Again, that beautiful piece. I love that piece. The falling into the sound and seeing that's just ridiculous. It's very good. I think you've said it to me before, and it keeps on kicking me.
Yeah, Bashō was pretty good at what he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if I had a cat, I'd name it Bashō.
That's a good one. That's one with soup.
Really
I messed up.
You called your cat Soup?
Oh yeah.
Soup is good for you.
Sandwich was taken.
Oh, I love poets. Are you too hot? Or are you now sticking to the chair? Oh, I forgot to tell you, these chairs, don't lean back because you'll stick to them.
It's too late.
That's
I'm
okay.
done. I'm in
I live
deep.
here now.
So
I am the chair now.
Hope you're ready
these
to
chairs will eat you.
gotta
They're like
adopt this.
huge, eating, surrealist chairs. I wanted... Oh, yes.
Surrealist chairs.
Do you have any poems that live in your body that you've memorized?
Not lately.
Okay.
I've been kind of coming back to
We'll
the
talk
body.
more about that later.
Yeah.
We'll talk more about that later. And the thing is that that memory also changes all the way through your life, and then it also deepens and widens and changes. So it's cool. I wanted to ask you both, what are you working on now?
You want to go first?
Sure. I'm in the middle of editing a collection of poetry I wrote when I was in Windsor. And Windsor really inspired me because it's this weird liminal space between Canada and the US. Like, they still measure temperature in Fahrenheit there. I'd be like, oh, it's so hot, it's 30 degrees today. And they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? So I was like, oh, and then the river between Windsor and Detroit, I really like to explore that through the idea of like fluidity between one state and the next. And I kind of used that as inspiration to talk about explorations through gender fluidity, being transgender, transnational, that kind of thing. And then I said, you know, what else deals with movements between worlds and this idea of fluidity and body? And the answer was fairy tales. So I decided to kind of mash those two ideas together. So there's lots of sirens in the Detroit River, lots of werewolves going around, and it's all very, very queer, very riot girl, and very, very gay. That's what I'm doing these days. That and baking muffins.
Our house is in abundance.
Being very gay is baking muffins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, that's lovely. And you're sharing a space to live.
Yeah,
Sure.
we are. Yeah, since like early May, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, it's been a while. Shoutouts to the Beltline.
Love the Beltline.
What?
Let's go.
I think that's the one time I've actually like made proper eye contact with the camera. So like that's the one you have of me just like.
Beltline. I am trying to take a little bit of a step back from poetry right now, just to kind of let the book settle and see what happens. I'm trying to venture back into fiction a little bit, which is where I started out. Doing a lot of reading of some sci-fi to dip my toe into a completely different realm. So I'm hoping to open up the floodgates and let it all out.
That's nice.
Yes.
It can be intimidating going into a new genre. That might be part of the thing that's stopping you, and you have to not give a fuck.
Yeah.
You cannot care what anyone thinks. You cannot care if people think you're smart or don't care. Trust yourself and grab your writing instruments and fly. That's the only way to go.
Mm.
And, you know, it is intimidating because sci-fi is intimidating.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
You know, I read a lot of sci-fi and have for a long, long time. And one of my favorite writers is Ursula K, which is why I tracked her down. And it's intimidating because there's a science aspect, and poets are like, ooh, science aspect. But then you go, oh wait, I can do research like anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And anyone can. And it's science, and there's lots there, and there's lots to learn, and there's places to go. And sci-fi is all about the characters.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about the science. If you read sci-fi, you'll find out that's just there. Mm-hmm. What sci-fi really is the characters and what they're going through, and their observation of the world that we live in through the worlds that are created. I think that's true. And I think I heard Robert Sire say that. I hope I got that right, Robert. I think that's what you said, and that's how I interpreted it. Please correct me if I'm wrong, because I could have gotten a little bit wrong. I don't want to paraphrase you, but that's what I got. And I was like, oh, that takes a lot of the heavy stuff off of the shoulder of it. And then you can just fly with it.
I'm gonna write that on a sticky note and put it by my bed, if that's okay.
Yes, sticky notes are good.
Yeah.
Beside your bed, good.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm in all the good places. La 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 la. Robert, that's you and me. We're both in that quote beside this person's bed.
Yes.
Which is sticky note.
Sticky note.
I know.
I made it weird.
It's never ending. I can't stop myself. My mouth will not stop talking. Help me.
Good.
Help me.
Don't make
Help
it
me.
stop.
Get me a sock. Something. Anything.
Did you say tea?
Really good. And sci-fi, I think you'll enjoy that. And I think the world will too, because it's I think that there's a lot more interest in that genre right now. I don't know why, but there is. And I was writing the speculative poem, and I didn't even realize it was speculative till someone said, well, there's a whole bunch of different realms and worlds in this. And I'm like, oh, because to me they were real. So once you start living in those other realms, you don't even realize that it's sci-fi or, it doesn't matter, because the only thing that really matters is the story between the characters and where the characters are going with this. Because you'll notice sci-fi characters are all really, really interesting. And there's an in-depth view of of perspective and philosophy. And that's, you already know. It's already there.
Oh, that's so juicy. I can't wait.
Oh, wow.
Sorry.
So
Juicy and sticky.
Juicy and
just wait. Now, you kiss one hand and I'll kiss the
Oh,
other at the
my.
same exact moment.
Thank you.
No, in a sense, I was kissing you, Skylar. Oh,
It's called an indirect kiss
We're all
in the anime world.
the anime world. Oh no, I'm entered anime world. Please help me.
Yeah.
Sci-fi, come back.
If your crush takes a sip from a cup and then you take a sip from the same cup, indirect kiss.
Oh wow.
Oh, snap.
Snap. That really
Please don't judge me, internet. It's too late for that.
It's too late for that. This is all this giggling, all of this total funness and uproariness. It's already out there.
Yay.
It's already existing in the world, and I'm sorry.
I'm not.
Yeah. So, what lies beyond the truth?
Illusion.
More truth.
Oh,
I don't know.
the truth is out there.
The truth is out there.
We've been watching a lot of X-Files.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
X-Files, where they don't move their faces.
Do.
Let's do an X-Files scene.
Okay, do you want to be Skinner? We got Skinner, Mulder, and Scully.
Okay.
Great.
Oh my god. Do you see what I see?
Scully, you won't believe this.
Mulder, it's me.
I think that was it.
I think that was it.
And scene.
Cut. That was well done.
Gillian Anderson, if you see this,
Julian
hi.
Anderson, we love you.
Yeah.
We love you. I love you. And I love how you can act so well without moving your face.
She gets much better after season 3 or 4 of the X-Files.
But she's a really good actor because
She-
you can perceive everything
There's
that
a lot
she
going on.
is saying and doing
Yeah.
out of her eyes.
It's crazy.
It's amazing
Yeah.
acting.
Yeah.
Really good acting.
yeah.
I also appreciate how short you are. The world must be very scary from down there, and you are
You're so brave.
you are so brave.
You're so brave.
I'm not part of this conversation. Please don't include me. What would you tell your younger self? That you have become poets?
That's a tough one. I
wouldn't tell him anything. The joy is in the roller coaster of finding shit out for yourself. Enjoy, bucko.
It was so much fun. I won't lie, I'm a Leo, so I definitely would tell her something, but I don't think she'd believe me. She was a stubborn little thing. But I'd say have fun too.
Have fun. You're trans. You'll find it.
Hello?
Don't worry.
There is much change in the future.
That impending sense that something is wrong. Something's wrong.
or write.
Yeah, eventually, yes, they'll get there.
It's all part of it. It's all part of it.
Yeah.
And with that, I would like to thank you for being wonderful guests,
Gifts.
and gifts to me. And I'm glad you're in my life, and I'm glad you're new to my life, and you will be in my life. And I loved this interview, and I learned a lot, and I had a really lovely time. So thank you.
I also had a very lovely time. Much to go home and think about too. I like it.
Much to go home and read.
Yeah.
Okay. One last kiss.
Can I kiss your hands?
Oh yeah. There we go.
It was very moist.
It's all about the kissing. Later, agitator.
Thank you.
Goodbye now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ryan.
Oh, great work, you guys. That was awesome.
Later, agitator. In a while, bibliophile.